Shuckalaka kapow, how's it going, old schoolers? You're kicking it old school with Russell J.S, and I am your host, Russell J.S. Doing another album versus album for you, taking two classic hard rock or heavy metal, whatever you want to call it, two classic albums right out of 1987 that were big hits in their day with MTV and rock radio, the whole kit and caboodle. What am I pinning one against the other with? How about Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction versus Def Leppard Hysteria? Now, if you're wondering why these CDs are in these strange looking cases, well, I do have cassette copies of both these albums, but I don't know where they're at because, I've moved around a lot over the years and I put stuff away and I just forgot to go through things because you had to get comfortable moving into a new place. But the thing is, I started listening to hard rock music at the tender age of 9 back in 1987. So that's a significant year of the 80s for me. Oh man, what a great time. The premiere of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we got a live action Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, which, by the way, I don't know if you've been keeping up, but I just found out that they just wrapped production on a live action Masters of the Universe movie. I don't know if it's going to be a reboot. I've seen pictures of it, and the guy that plays He-Man, I forgot what his name was, but he's tailor fit for the role, and Jared Leto is going to be Skeletor. Looks like they got a really great cast for this movie, and I just hope they don't try to recreate. The original movie with Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella, it was cheesy and corny, but in a good way. I enjoyed it because at that time, I was kind of losing interest in the Masters of the Universe toy line. I played with that toy line since I was 5. For my 5th birthday, I got, the Castle Grayskull, the Attack Track, the figures He-Man, Teela, Beastman, Ram-Man, and, Skeletor. And, the next three Christmases would be based around getting all the new play sets and the new figures that were coming out. But tonight it's not about He-Man, it's not about anything but these two albums. Now, now let me get back to the story. At the tender age of 9 years old, the year is 1987, I started discovering like all these bands that had all these hit albums of the time. My first taste of hard rock was Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet, Aerosmith, Permanent Vacation, Motley Crue, Girls, 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 Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In, and Van Halen 5150. And in many ways, and Kiss Crazy Nights. And in many ways, I always thought the lineups that they had at the time was, I found out these bands had been around for some of them were around before I was born, like Aerosmith and Kiss. And, some of them just a few years after I was born came out. But I always wanted to do this. I want to compare these two albums. They are, said to be the best. You got a debut album, you got a fourth album. Now, the thing about this album was I stopped listening to it for the longest time because radio played it to death. There were, especially Pour Some Sugar on Me. Here's the thing. Pyromania, in my opinion, was, this is okay, but Pyromania was better than this. And, if everybody thinks that Def Leppard is only Pyromania, Hysteria, and everything else after, you got to go to the first two albums because Pyromania and Hysteria are not the first two Leppard albums. You got to look back to 1980s On Through the Night and 1981's High and Dry. And Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction. I found out about Guns N' Roses later on, and I really got hooked with GNR. So we're going to go ahead. I got my notebook at the ready. Let's check these bad Oscars out, see who's the best of the best in 1987, shall we? Alright, let me go get the notebook and the pen. And if you're wondering, I'm not bald. The light is shining on my gray hair, so it looks like I'm bald. If you've watched any of my videos, you should know that I'm, almost past salt and pepper with my hair. Okay, in the contest of Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction versus Def Leppard Hysteria, here we go. Welcome to the Jungle versus Women. Now, Welcome to the Jungle has got to be Guns N' Roses' most overplayed track. It's an awesome track, and Women is an awesome track too. So I'm going to give them both a point. It's So Easy versus Rocket. Again, It's So Easy is also a really killer track. And, Rocket's kind of got that Queen vibe. Now, I also forgot to mention if you're new to the channel, hit a like, subscribe, leave comments down in the box below, and ring that bell for downstairs for notifications. And I also wanted to say, one thing about Hysteria, this would be the final album of the late great Steamin' Steve Clark, who 3 years later, while they were getting that garbage album Adrenalize ready, he had passed away due to his, substance abuse problems that he could not overcome. And when this album came out, it had been 3 years since Rick Allen lost his arm in a near fatal car accident when he was coming home for New Year's Eve after, I guess, they toured for Pyromania. But man, it took him 3 years, but he came back strong. He may have had one arm to drum with, but he practiced using his left foot to do his left arm parts with the electric drum kit. And I have to say, not only did he become a better drummer, in my opinion, he's better than most drummers out there. I mean, I'd hate to say it, I'm sorry Metallica fans, but I think he's a better drummer than Lars. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, you're blasphemizing my Metallica. Look, I don't hate Metallica, okay? And I don't think Lars is a bad drummer. He's an awesome drummer, don't get me wrong. But he's not John Bonham. He's not Tommy Lee. He's not Keith Moon. He's not Rick Allen. And he's not Neil Peart, okay? He's not Alex Van Halen either. And I'm not saying, I'd never say anything bad about Metallica. Metallica's an awesome band too. But, again, this is about Def Leppard and Guns N' Roses. Okay, so It's So Easy versus Rocket. It's So Easy is awesome, kind of got that punk vibe to it. Rocket has that, arena anthem, raise your fist in the air, pump it out. Rocket, yeah. I mean, both are great, so I got to give them each a point. Night Train versus Animal. Animal is just one of those songs. It's had the living bejesus played out of it. I am not a big fan of it. I love Night Train. So Night Train gets the point for GNR. Out to Get Me versus Love Bites. Easily, I have to go with Out to Get Me, because what the heck was Def Leppard thinking? But then again, I guess they wanted their female audience because, well, you know why. But to go that far, come on. Okay, Mr. Brownstone versus Pour Some Sugar on Me. Yeah, easily, I cannot stand. That's the one song on this album I don't like because it's been played beyond played to death. And every time I go to a karaoke, there's always some doofus that's had too many. He thinks he could rock it out, and practically he destroys the song was destroyed for me. And not to mention the massive airplay it receives. It's one of those songs that they loop 3 or 4 times a day on the radio. So, you know what? Mr. Brownstone takes the point there. Paradise City versus Armageddon It. For Guns N' Roses, that's another one of those songs that, it was good in its day, but ultimately played to death. So Armageddon It takes the win. My Michelle versus Gods of War. Yeah, Gods of War to me sounded a lot heavier than My Michelle. So Gods of War takes that. Think About You versus Don't Shoot Shotgun. Yeah, that's just another one where Def Leppard wants more of a female audience than they do a male audience. I mean, when those guys, wouldn't they like it if, a rock band had come out like somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they, the guitar player said, "Oh, I picked up a guitar because of Phil Collin and, Steve Clark," or the drummer said, I started beating the skins because of Rick Allen, because Rick Allen is so awesome. So, I mean, you got people that say they're influenced by Steven Adler, they're influenced by Duff McKagan and Slash. And I gotta say, Think About You rocks. So, Guns N' Roses gets that. Sweet Child of Mine versus Run Riot. Yeah, easily I gotta go with Sweet Child of Mine. Run Riot is kind of, hokey for me, kind of mediocre. You're Crazy versus Hysteria. The title track for the album, Hysteria, you know what? Even though it's kind of a slow ballady kind of tune, I love the melodies and I love the tempo and the way the music goes. So Hysteria is going to take that point. Anything Goes versus Excitable. Again, Guns N' Roses has that punk rock vibe with Anything Goes. I mean, it's reminded me of, the Dead Boys, or, that early punk that came out of New York and came out of LA, after, that Britain copied. And Excitable is also an awesome rocking track. They both get a point. Rocket Queen versus Love and Affection. Easily Rocket Queen, okay? You know what's so awesome about that tune was in the instrumental, you'll hear a girl moaning in the background. That's because Axl Rose brought a girl into the recording studio when they were mixing Appetite, and it was Steven Adler's girlfriend. Then drummer Steven Adler's girlfriend, and Steven wasn't giving her affection, so she went over to Axl, and Axl asked her for a favor. And they went in a vocal booth and they fooled around. Axl hit record, rolled tape, and the rest is all history. Love and Affection, it's too sappy, so therefore, for the last one, Guns N' Roses takes the point. Now, for the final score, Guns N' Roses with 9, Def Leppard Hysteria with 5, so therefore, there you have it, right there. Guns N' Roses are the winners of this one. Sorry, Hysteria. And sorry to Def Leppard fans that might get disappointed in this. But, what can I say? Appetite is a better album. I mean, maybe if Mutt Lange would tell them, because he was the one who produced the record, maybe tell Def Leppard, hey, make an album that's sort of similar On Through the Night or High and Dry, except heavier. You could get the best of both worlds. You get the male audience and the female audience. They would have had, like, the whole influence, like future rock stars will say, oh, Rick Allen was my influence on drums, or Steve Clark and Phil Collin were the reason I picked up a guitar. You know, it's like, like I said, Hysteria is an okay album, but that's all it really is. And like I said before, if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, leave comments in the box down below, ring the notification bell for future videos, and remember, keep it real, keep it fresh, keep it chill, keep kicking it old school. Listen to the old school, music of whatever your choice is. Play some Atari, play some ColecoVision, play some Nintendo, Intellivision, Odyssey, whatever old school gaming consoles you desire. Watch some great old school movies, old school TV shows, and get you enough of love, get you enough of less chaos, no chaos, get you enough of less drama, no drama, get you enough of peace, get you enough of tranquility, get you enough of anything that you desire in life. And always remember, Godspeed, may the force be with you always, and shuckalacka kapow.